Hi, I'm Marc Tillery, Batavia Daily News, and I'd like to welcome Peter, Priya, Kelsey, and Deanna. And they are coordinators and designers for the 42nd annual fashion show here at GCC, and this year's theme is
Ageless.
Ageless. And we're going through decades of fashion. Guys, I've already heard a few things about this, and it's going to be pretty amazing. And we brought the students here today for the first of a three-part series to tell us about their upcoming scenes in anticipation for this year's up-and-coming fashion show on May 6th at
6.
I'm going to kick it off with a question. Feel free, whoever wants to answer it first, and then we'll go through. Going back to your childhood, when did you first realize you were inclined toward fashion?
I feel like when I was little, I would just style outfits for myself and kind of come downstairs and have a fashion show for my parents, and I feel like that's definitely where it started.
I never really felt it as a kid. I always wore comfy clothes, and I never really focused on fashion, but I was definitely more creative.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would always experiment, and then it was around high school when I started experimenting with fashion, and that's when I really fell in love with it and really started going towards it.
So my story is very different. I never thought I would go into fashion because I've grown up saying to go into medical field, some professional degree side. So this is so random and calculated decision I took last year, and I'm loving it.
Kelsey?
I started sewing when I was 9. So I've been doing clothing and fashion for a long time. My grandmother actually taught me. I got my first sewing machine when I was 10.
Really?
So I've been sewing for years now. Obviously I wasn't educated, I was just kind of playing around, but as I got into high school I started liking it more, and I have a degree in hair as well. So it all kind of goes into each other. So I want to pursue fashion and hair together, and that's where I've gotten so far.
And as somebody that learned business here at GCC, you cut the middleman out and doing your own thing, and that's a lot more money at the end of the day. I promise you that. What had you choose the decade that you went with?
I chose the 20s because when I'm a new sewer. I'm new at all of this. So when I picked the 20s, I was thinking the patterns and all the stuff is going to be easier to create because the designs were more simple, but I also love the elegancy of the 1920s and how beautiful it all was. Everyone dressed very nice, and they all went to parties, though. They dressed nice, but they had fun, so I really like that about
Definitely
the 20s.
an amazing era of fashion. Priya?
1930s I choose, well actually I did not choose. Miss Taylor picked me for this, and well, the idea is so good because 1930s with the Great Depression was, and my look's gonna be very casual and with some little luxurious touch. So yeah.
I picked the 1950s because it's the classics. Everything you see is based off the 50s. Women were so feminized in the 50s, and that's what set for everything now in the future. Everything was about what they looked like, the housewives. Family values is actually what my scene is called.
Okay.
So it's basically family based. I have models that are all women, and then there's a couple that comes out at the end. So it's basically just wrapping the 50s family values and all of the things that went into 50s into that. And I think when I planned my scene, I wanted to demonstrate what the 50s were like and what it could be like now, because we're starting to drift from values and sitting down at the table with your family. So demonstrating what a family looks like, I think, is really important for this era.
I honestly appreciate that, Kelsey. I'm glad you said that, and I'm really excited to see your scene and how you intertwine that into the show. That's awesome. Deanna?
My scene is 1960s. I feel like because there's just so much change and evolution is what really drove me to the scene from the beginning of the 1960s. There were a lot more traditional. Women were still wearing dresses, lower the knee, mini skirts started popping up in the 1960s. And you can see a big shift from the early 60s to the end, especially when the Flower Child movement started. That's one of the reasons why I named my scene Flower Child, which is kind of the big shift. People started finally realizing we're going to dress for us and style and not kind of traditional norms. And that's definitely what I'm going to be showing throughout my scene, is kind of how it started off more traditional and how kind of it developed, because I feel 1960s especially is kind of when we broke away from the traditional way to dress.
Yeah, the 70s definitely got crazy. You're now we talked about your scenes. What would you say is the favorite look in each of your scenes?
It's hard for me to pick a favorite look because I've spent so much time on each of the dresses that I've been
For sure.
working on. It's like, I just love all of them. But if I had to pick one, it's the asymmetrical dress that I did. I really like how that turned out.
Priya?
So my favorite look is the casual look that I am working on. It's like a officer and a casual worker who goes daily job. So yeah, it's my favorite look.
Great.
I have a plethora of looks. We all do. I have a few circle skirts and things like that. But probably my two favorite looks would be the vintage nightgowns. They're made from 1950s vintage patterns.
Wow,
So
okay.
they're going to be looking authentic. And then the robes that are paired with them are from the 50s. And the models that will be wearing them will have their hair in rollers, and it'll be pretty cool to see what a housewife would look like.
Awesome.
So that's
So
probably my favorite.
very old school style, like classic elegance. I like that a lot. Awesome.
I definitely have a few looks that are my favorite, but I feel like I definitely just styled this one. It's a pastel striped sweater and lavender tapered pants, which pastel was definitely very in the 60s, and just like low sneakers. So it's just a very casual look, but we paired it with some retro glasses, and it's just very fitting for the scene.
What would you say was the hardest sew or style that you had to go with? Just what was the toughest design? What is giving you like obviously we're coming up on a couple of weeks before the show, so I'm sure the pieces there's some that are crunch time, some that are probably completely done. What would you say is the toughest one, the one that gave you just a really hard time to create?
Definitely the asymmetrical again, because the fabric that I chose for that, it was a sheer fabric, and if you know anything about sheer and sewing with it, every time I tried to put it through the machine, it kept getting caught, and it was difficult to work with and took a lot of time and some corrections, but eventually I got through it and it turned out beautiful. It was my favorite one.
I think I would agree with Peter, because I've started cutting out one of the nightgowns, because the other one is almost done, but I've started the more like silky sheer fabric, and I will agree, cutting it out is hard, and I've sewn sheer before, and it slips because of the sheen on each side, so when you put it together, it slides in the machine, so that's probably what would be most difficult for me.
I don't have like a difficult look per se. I feel like just trying to find like certain pieces that fit my scene perfectly. Like for one of my looks, one of the male looks, I just thrifted a leather jacket, and I wanted to make sure it looked very like authentic, like biker leather jacket from back then, and I finally was able to find one, but I made a huge Facebook post about it and went on like a manhunt, so I just, seeing that all come together, I have to say that's definitely one of my top few favorite looks.
So Deanna, this is your final year for the fashion show. How about the rest of you?
This is I'm a freshman here, so I have another year here, so I have one more fashion show after this one, but yeah, it's been a challenge being a freshman.
Yes, there's a lot of pressure. You guys have an amazing professor in Mrs. Taylor, and she is definitely Mr. Dukowski. I don't know if you guys heard of Mr. Rick Dukowski. He was the originator of all this, and she has taken this and ran with it. And you guys are really doing it big, and I'm proud to be here with you. I think that's awesome, and it just creates more for Batavia to see. When everybody watches this, they're going to see what you guys are made of. And I've always said that, you have sports around Batavia, you have all these different things, but this fashion show is iconic. 42 of these. That's quite a bit, and and for you guys to be a part of that, that's amazing. So in closing, is there anything you guys want to say about the show? Anything else you want to say about your scenes?
The show is May 6th, and the doors open at 6.
Make sure to, GCC Fashion Program does have a TikTok, Facebook page, and Instagram page. The best way to help support us and show support for the show is to share those posts and like them. So we'd really appreciate that as well.
All right, again, Marc Tillery with the Batavia Daily News, executive producer, and I'm proud to be here with these guys. That's Peter, Priya, Kelsey, Deanna, of course, I got you. No, I want to thank you guys again for your valuable time, and I know it's crunch time in the next few weeks, and the war room is right upstairs. It's right above me, right? I want to say that's where you guys are doing all the sewing.
Yeah.
Just another reminder that this year's fashion show is coming up on May 6th at 6, right here at GCC. That's Saturday, May 6th at the Richard C. Call Arena. We hope to see everyone there, and it's definitely a great time. So make sure you come on out and be a part of it. And what's the name of the show again?
Ageless.
Ageless. Thank you, guys.